This is Jets at Noon with Cameron Poitras and Jim Toth on 680 CJOB.
I think, he's a big physical guy and, he can end a lot of things in the corner. So I think, with my skating through the neutral zone and just being able to support him all over the ice, I think, I think that just blends together well. I think the way he can end plays down low and then make the breakout pass allows me to use my feet and get up in the rush and, have good gaps and stuff like that.
Well, there's a little hint there for you as to what the plan is for Luke Schenn, who's going to be making his Winnipeg Jets debut tonight against the New York Rangers. Pregame at 4, puck drop at 7 here on 680 CJOB. Cam Poitras, Jim Toth. We'll bring Jim here on the show in just a moment here. But Jets at Noon is brought to you by Wash Method Car Wash, 690 St. Anne's Road. VIP take on the text line will win a VIP car wash from our good friends at Wash Method, 204-780-6868. We'll announce the winner later in the program. Mitchell Clinton was at the morning skate. He put this out. Vladislav Nemestikov, who left the ice against Carolina. In the third period, I believe, Jim Toth, wasn't it? It was the third period?
I believe so, yeah.
Was on the ice for the NHL's morning skate. Here are the lines. Connor, Scheifele, Velarde, Ehlers, Nemestikov, Perfetti, Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton, Tanev, Barron, Iafallo. Head coach Scott Arniel did say that Rasmus Kupari, has received full medical clearance and is good to go, but Morgan Barron is going to get a little bit of a longer run at center on the fourth line, so Kupari will not return to the lineup this evening. On defense, Morrissey and DeMello, Samberg and Pionk, and Hayden Fleury matched up with Luke Schenn. Stanley, Miller, and Heinola are the three scratches on the blue line. Thoughts on this, Jim? We'll start with Schenn with Fleury. How do you feel about that pairing and Fleury finding his way back in the lineup?
Well, I think it's good. And I know a lot of people are going to sit here and go, it's about time for Logan Stanley, but he wasn't very good in Carolina. He has had a decent run since he's been in the lineup, but this Cam plays out to what I've been saying to all the people who have been harping on Stanley. I just thought they wanted to finally get him healthy and see what he is and run him for 40 to 50 games, and they've done that now. But I also think, and as I said at the trade deadline, and there was a listener that reached out after the game on Sunday and said, like, with the chart of how awful Stanley was. Mm-hmm. And I said, you don't need a chart for that. Like, he had a bad game. But we're at that time of the year where your performance will keep you in the lineup. And I think this is what the Jets were doing all along for people who kept saying, why? Because he has not played consistent games in a row. And now that they have, it's wide open. Do I think Logan Stanley will be a healthy scratch for the rest of the season if Fleury plays great tonight? No, I think they're going to all get a chance.
Yeah, me too.
They're looking at the playoffs. What is our starting lineup going to become playoffs? And in the meantime, at the forefront of all of that is they need to win games. They need to finish first in the Central Division. So I'm not surprised. I think they want to see what it looks like, and I think they're going to see what it looks like with Stanley and Schenn at one point too. But if Fleury can come in and play good and play well and not make mistakes like Stanley did on Sunday, I think they run this pairing out against Dallas. And I think it's a new look for Dallas to have to face.
Here's Scott Arniel on why Fleury.
Like we mentioned after the deadline is over, we know what our numbers are now, and I want to make sure everybody's getting their reps and everybody's a part of this. It's going to take everybody. If we're going to go deep in the playoffs, it's going to take the full roster. And we're getting Hayden in there has been, something I've wanted to do. He's a good skater, good mobility. Against the Rangers tonight, just felt that, put him with Luke and, his ability to skate and make plays as well.
So there's head coach Scott Arniel on that decision. I wonder do you think Heinola is going to get a game here, or I'm not so certain?
I think you'll get a game.
Somewhere down the stretch here.
Coming down the road, I think, they'll probably play Schenn, get him acclimatized for a little bit, and then I think they're going to look at...
You think Schen's going to come out of the lineup?
Yeah.
At some point? I think he's going to be a guy that's going to sit in the press box?
I think they're going to give him a little run here, and as a veteran player, I think down the stretch, like maybe 3 games left, they're going to give him a night off and get Heinola in there. What he just said, Cam, for everybody who has a fever around this, they're going to need them all. Mm-hmm. And your hope shouldn't be that they take one guy out of the lineup because you don't like him or he plays bad. Your hope should be everybody plays well and they have options because they're going to need them.
Yeah.
So to be happy that Logan Stanley's not in the lineup, or to be ecstatic maybe 3 weeks from now that Heinola comes in and plays well, that's what you should hope for, because they're going to need all these guys. And we just saw it on the weekend. Nemestikov, Kupari were out. It looked like they weren't going to play. You not only need these guys playing, you need them all playing well.
Well, that's why Barron is still at center. Kupari is okay.
Because he's played well there.
Well, why would you not? He can take faceoffs on the left side. Why would you not see what Barron can continue to do at center? You might be caught in a situation like this down the stretch of the regular season in the playoffs where Barron has to step in on a fourth line center role. Why would you not give him this chance? I mean, this is the time to do it. I mean, I know you have Dallas has a game in hand on the Jets. They're only 6 points back. You're not slowing down. You need points. You want to finish first in the Central Division here. But there's no rush to take Barron out of the lineup. Keep him in that spot. You might need him.
Yeah, and if I recall, I think it was against the Islanders, the last time Fleury played, he wasn't very good.
Yeah.
He made some mistakes. He was a little indecisive, which I get. He hasn't played in so long, right?
Yeah.
Like even tonight, I don't expect him to come on and set the world on fire or just be decent. Like he hasn't played in a while. But that's all part of the process. Like they need everybody. These are their numbers. Now, even last year with Stanley, he played his way into the playoffs. And after 2 games, he played his way out of the playoffs. That's not the optimal. That's, you want them playing well. So, and this is what I love about it is I don't care who their names are. It's now the last 18 games here. It's now performance-based, in my opinion. If you play well and are decent and don't hurt the team or don't make mistakes, you're going to stay in the lineup. They need to figure out who they want to start the 6 come playoff time, and hopefully everybody's healthy. But to me, I like this inter-competition. I really do. I think it drives players to play good.
Nemestikov back, no concussion protocol from him. He was pulled during the third period by a concussion spotter. Here's Nemestikov on the hit.
I mean, it's a hockey game. Things happen, so that's the way they tried to respond. But, I mean, no problem with that. Kind of, play hard, and sometimes checks like that happen. So just got to play through it.
They didn't like a hit that Nemestikov. Jordan Staal responds. Gets pulled out of a game, but no missed time for Nemestikov here. So that's certainly a positive.
I appreciate that from Nemestikov, but I don't agree. He didn't have the puck. It was from a blind side, and it was in the head. I think the reason they put him in concussion protocol is they thought his nose was broken. At least I did.
Yeah.
And when he was sitting on the bench and his nose is beat red and he's trying to adjust it, I think that's why you go into protocol. Now, if you go into protocol and you don't have concussion symptoms, then I think you come out real quick. But whenever you take a shot in the face and the nose like that, they got to check you, right? So I think this is good news and stuff. And look, I think so here's the other part of this. Yeah. Like, I think Dave Gustafsson has played really good this year.
Yeah, he has.
But Morgan Barron moves to center, and he looks good there. And all of a sudden, here's some options. Just like in Carolina, remember months ago when Lowry had to go up with Ehlers? Mm-hmm. And what it did was, and I think it was either Dwayne Gilroy-Chek or JP Vigier broke it down, that you can't put all speed together. And you can't put speed with really, not quick speed guys.
Yeah.
But Lowry's faster than people give him credit for because he's so big, but he's not an elite speed guy. Ehlers is. It worked, right? And you and I talked about this on the show.
Yeah.
Scott O'Neill will put that in his book, and he'll remember that. And in Carolina, he remembered it. He's like, we can't score right now. I'm moving this up.
Yeah.
And that was before Nemestikov got hit. He started the third that way. So I think that those are notes that you make along the way. But Morgan Barron, to me, has looked good at center. And if you can move him to center and keep Tanev and Iafallo in there, and then potentially use Gustafsson as well. I mean, it's just options, right? But I think that, they're going to try and win this division. And then as they do it, they're going to try and mix some people in, maybe one lineup change every 3 or 4 games, like maybe Gustafsson comes back in or whatever. But and they got to stay healthy, and that's the goal right now in my mind. But Barron's look good there, in my opinion.
The big talk heading into the trade deadline was need to improve the second line for the Winnipeg Jets. That did not materialize. Here's Nemestikov on second line scoring.
Yeah, I think we're getting a lot of chances, but we haven't been scoring, so we need to kind of get through that little slump and start putting pucks in the net. But you kind of try to not read into all that stuff that's being said in media and stuff like that, and just kind of go out there and play. And I think, as I said, we've been getting a lot of chances, but we just got to start capitalizing on them.
Yeah, and I mean, how much is riding on this second line?
A lot.
Is it a linchpin heading into the playoffs that if the second line is, maybe firing at only 75% of what you'd like a second line to be doing, is that a big problem, Jim?
So I believe in the playoffs, your best players have to be your best players. I also believe that your secondary score and your third or fourth line have to win you a game in a 7-game series, whether that's 3 points and they win 2-1 or whether that's 3 points and they win 5-4. I think your depth scoring has to help you win at least one game in a 7-game series. And then I think your best players have to be your best players. But this second line, and I agree with him, they've been getting a ton of chances. You and I have talked about Perfetti.
Yeah.
I mean, prior to the break, I think he had 11 points in 10 games.
He had a good run, yeah.
And then even the other night against, it wasn't New Jersey. It was when they lost in Philly, or when they won in Philly. I thought he should have had a hat trick, but he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I'm on the Perfetti train here that as long as you're getting your chances, but come playoff time, you have to bury those chances. Now, when I thought he should have had a hat trick and was one of the best players on the ice, he's got to at least get a goal when he has those opportunities.
Yeah.
If he has a chance to get 3, he's got to at least get 1.
Yeah, the hot and cold is just not going to work. Over the last 6 games for Perfetti, is 1 goal and 1 point.
And prior to that?
Yeah, prior to that, he had a real great run where he had 5 goals. And over that time period, he had 7 assists, so he had 12 points in 10 games. So that's the Perfetti you need to see. I mean, you're not that's what he's building towards, and it's tough to talk about him almost being there, but he is. And yeah, he's a member of this team, and the Jets are going to have to heavily rely on him because listen, there's no Tyler Toffoli coming this time. There's no Sean Monahan. Perfetti is this is his chance. Like, he's got to run with it. They weren't able to make those moves. So this is on Perfetti and that second line to elevate themselves.
And I'm going to go one step further with that second line. Nick Ehlers has to show up playoff time.
Yeah.
Nick Ehlers, and when I mean show up, I mean produce. He's an elite skill and speed. So best players have to be your best players. He's in there with the top line. He's on the power play. He's killing it. Analytic community has been saying for years, put him on the number 1 power play, watch what happens. Well, he's producing points on the power play. Come playoff time, we're going to look at Perfetti and Nemestikov and judge that second line. But that second line needs to get production from Nick Ehlers. And so if they can do that, because last year in the playoffs, we all know what happened. Mark Scheifele was a point-a-game player in 5 games. Kyle Connor was a 1 point above a point-per-game player in 5 games.
Yeah.
We need some production of that second line, and the guy who's got to lead that is Nick Ehlers.
Molly Walker with the New York Post puts out Igor Shesterkin is the starting Rangers goalie, the first guy off the ice. Hellebuck versus Igor.
Big-time goaltending battle tonight.
Yeah.
Turn it up. Let's get it going. It's game day. It's the beginning of the end, if I may. Cam, the beginning of the end. You got to start putting up points. Finish first, and then let's go. But let's get there first.
Still to come, Dan Rosen, senior writer with the NHL, is going to be joining us to talk about the New York Rangers in tonight's game. Looking forward to that conversation. Want to ask him, it's been positives and negatives, certainly for this year for the Rangers, but what's the future? Where are things going? Stay tuned for his answer on that. We're going to talk Ekblad. Got to talk Ekblad. The 20 gamer, and Brind'Amour, some rock solid comments about the Rantanen drama.
We'll be right back. If you don't believe me, he ripped off his shirt after and said, "You want a piece of this?"
It's not just Winnipeg, everybody. It's not just Winnipeg.
It's at noon with Cameron Poitras and Jim Toth on 680 CJOB.
Florida Panthers blue liner Aaron Ekblad has been suspended for 20 games without pay for violating the league's performance-enhancing drug substance program. In a statement, he says the news was a shock. He made a mistake by taking something to help him recover from recent injuries without first checking with team personnel. That one I put a big asterisk by. Maybe he knew he shouldn't be taking it. Ekblad has been sidelined for parts of the season with injuries, been on and off, missing 8 games so far this season, but it's been on and off, upper body, lower body, undisclosed injuries. He says he let everyone down. He's truly sorry, accepts responsibility, calling it a hard lesson, 18 games left in the season for Florida. It will extend into the playoffs. Jim Toth, your initial thoughts on this? We only got about 15 seconds, but...
I just remember when Andy Pettitte took it in New York, and he said, a trainer came to me and said, you got a hamstring injury, it's 4 to 6 weeks. If you want to take this, it's 2 to 3 weeks. And he said, is it banned? And he said, no. And he goes, okay. And he goes, that's how I started, because it would heal you faster. So I don't disagree that whatever he got caught with HGH, it heals you faster. I would think you got to know that, though, right?
It's a contract here. You know you have to check. This isn't. They run programs.
I don't know
they run
why
classes.
Any athlete wouldn't triple check these days.
You have to check.
I don't know why any athlete wouldn't triple check these days.
Listen, it's a contract year. Playoffs are coming. That's all I got to say. We'll be right back. Dan Rosen with us after this.
It's certainly changed the roster a lot since the last time we've seen them. So, but the pieces they've added are good pieces. I know JT really well. Obviously, know him from Vancouver. I had him in New York. He's going to drive that. He's driving that line. He's he's got some energy that's out there, and they have. You can see the top 6 offensive group that are coming at you, and then I think they got 2 real heavy lines that kind of play the hard game. So, different look, but still an elite team with some top players.
Head coach Scott O'Neill on the New York Rangers in town tonight at Canada Life Center. Pregame at 5, puck drop at 7. My cousin Glenn, who is a massive Rangers fan, he's hyped for this one. He's been texting me for a few days now.
Is he going to the game?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I think he's right on the glass, too.
Maybe Glenn can tell us what the Rangers' plan is. What are they doing there?
Jets at Noon is brought to you by Wash Method Car Wash, 690 St. Anne's Road. A VIP take on the text line will win a VIP car wash from my good friends at Wash Method. 204-780-6868. We'll announce the winner later on in the program. To help us break everything down about tonight's game, Dan Rosen, NHL.com senior writer, joining us now. Hey, Dan, how are you?
Hey, what's going on, guys? How are you?
Good, Dan. Thanks for doing this.
Awesome.
Yeah, happy.
We got to Scott O'Neill talking about JT Miller off the top, speaking very highly of him. Of course, he was an acquisition of the Rangers midseason here. How does he fit in over his first 15 or so games?
Yeah, he looks really good with the Rangers, which is not a surprise. I mean, he's a power driver. He's a play driver, and he has been doing that for the Rangers. There's been production. He's also helping to drive 2 other guys. Like Mika Zibanejad was not having that great of a season before he got paired with JT Miller, and now Mika looks like he's got jump. Like he really does. Like he looks a lot better. He's playing on the right side, so he's out of the middle. Although Peter Laviolette will tell you that JT will take the faceoffs on his strong side, Mika Zibanejad takes them on his strong side, and whoever takes the faceoffs center. But it has cleared the deck a little bit for Mika, I think. And Will Cooley's been in it. He didn't have a great game, Will Cooley, the other night against Columbus, but none of the Rangers really did. Will Cooley's been a good power guy on the left wing there too. I think JT Miller has just really elevated the Rangers, their depth. They've been able to load up a little bit more. So he himself has been very good.
You mentioned the game against Columbus. Now, how devastating was this weekend slate of games? Winless against Ottawa and Columbus, the 2 teams you're trying to track down. That's a tough go.
Listen, you lose one of them, you're like, all right, we're surviving, But you got a 3-1 lead against the Ottawa Senators in the 3rd period.
Yeah.
And you lose the game in overtime. Like that's not a swing against the Buffalo Sabres or the Jets, right? If they lose that type of game against Winnipeg, it's like, all right, we gave 2 points to a team that we're not battling with, right? But they gave 2 points to a team that they're directly battling with, and they only took 1 when they could have taken 2 and given none. That's a brutal loss. And then they come back the next night against Columbus and get outplayed the way they were. That's a problem, So it ended up being what looked like for 2.5 periods in Ottawa. It looked like it was going to be a great start to the weekend. It ends up being a lost weekend for the Rangers, and now they find themselves 2 points back from Columbus, and with only 18 games left to play, and Columbus has a game in hand, right? So it's a bad weekend. There's no other way to look at it.
It's interesting what you said about JT Miller helping Mika because that's who they were going to trade to get him. And now they're sort of doing this together. It just begs a question going back to the Trouba move. What are the Rangers doing in your mind? Like, I love they're selling everything off, but while you're doing that, I like the acquisition of Miller because no matter what direction you're going, a guy like that can really help you. And he's proven that since getting there. But what are they doing in your mind, Dan? Where are they going?
I think there was a recognition. Well, I know there was a recognition early in the season when things started to go off the rails for them. And let's go back. I mean, like the start of the season, they were good record-wise, but they weren't a good team. Like they were winning games, but a lot of that was on the back of Igor Shesterkin. And then they go and for a stretch from I think it's mid-November to late December, they lose 15 out of 19 games. And worse that, they got no points in those losses. It was a 4-15-0 stretch, right? There was a recognition in that stretch that what we're doing right now is not good enough, obviously. We need to change. We need to alter things around here. And then, Mika's name gets out there and Chris Kreider's name gets out there. And, it's like, oh, okay, what's happening here? Trouba, we knew was out there already. And so they were able to trade Trouba. And they cleared the $8 million off of their cap, which was really big for them. And that started sort of like the retool of the core, if you will, that trade. And getting JT Miller in a trade is a guy that they got for now, but really for down the road too, for next season and beyond. Yes, for now, but for next season and beyond as they're retooling the core. And that's the goal here that they're trying to accomplish. They trade Kakko and they got Will Borgen. Well, they find out Will Borgen's a top 4 defenseman for them right now, and they give him a 5-year deal. They traded Trouba and they got Urho Vakanainen. He's not a bad 5, 6, or 7, depending on where you want him. Okay, we can use him, right? They have Lindgren and Vesey and Riley Smith who are pending UFAs. We're not going to re-sign those guys. Let's sell. We're sellers at the deadline, but they're really trying to thread the needle. So they get out and get a Carson Soucy, too, who can be there for next year. It's all about staying relevant right now, but looking at it and saying, what we had here went stale. We need to change it up. Let's get a head start on that. And that's what they've done. So they've added in, they've changed around their defense in a big way. And I think there's, the Adam Fox is still out of the lineup, but they've changed around their defense in a big way. They've added a big forward for themselves up front. It's been a gradual changing of the guard is what it is. And they got a head start on the off season while staying relevant in the regular season. And that's exactly the goal. That was exactly the goal, which was to really thread the needle between being a buyer and a seller this year.
What was it with Trouba? Was it the staleness and different leadership wanted? Or I mean, obviously things would have gone sour when they tried to trade him in the offseason and he said no.
Yeah, that's where
but that's just it? There's nothing more to it?
No, there was a drop in his play. No, there's no question about it. There was a drop in his play and probably, a role that he'd been playing in that top 4 paired with Keandre Miller, that there was a drop in that play, and it was an evident drop in his play in the playoffs last year. They still made it to the Eastern Conference Final last year, but Trouba definitely his play dropped off, his speed dropped off, his defending dropped off, and then they tried to move him in the offseason, and that became it was also a personal thing with Jacob Trouba, and the reason he contract negotiated to have the no move through, and they tried to get him to waive it, and then there was threats, and it didn't work out well. There were other ways to go about it. They didn't go about it in those ways, and it needed to be a parting of the ways. And when Jacob came in, I give him full marks. Like, he came in as a true pro this year, but he knew that his leadership was compromised, because once your teammates know the team is trying to trade you, how do you then go out and lead those guys when the team doesn't want you there? And it needed to happen. Argue whatever way you want to about how it happened. Sometimes you just got to be cold-blooded in this business, right? But they needed to move on from him. Yes, it was the drop in a play, but then it was in the off season when they asked him to waive his no move, and there was the whole situation, and he refused, and which is his contractual right to do so. That really set things off the wrong way, and they were already dealing with the fallout of the Barclay Gaudreau stuff too, so that didn't help either.
This has nothing to do with tonight's matchup, but these no trades, right? Like, it just we know the players that won't come to Winnipeg. we know the players that have them don't waive them, but then it doesn't do you any good not to waive them because the team wants rid of you so bad anyway. It just becomes this cultural
you're being sold. You're being
like look at even Marner in Toronto, right? Like how do you fix that now? I get the idea of them 2 decades ago, and there's nobody happy with them anymore. The players, the organizations,
I wonder if it's something that's going to be dealt with in the CBA.
I mean, maybe Brock Nelson's happy with his now, but I'm just saying, like overall, that even when a team asks you to waive them and you don't, it doesn't like it's useless because they want rid of you now.
Well, it gives you power though, right?
True.
It gives you the power to help control where you go. All right, you don't want me. I want to go there. Send me there. And then they make that happen.
It's kind of like
stay here. That's my power. You've given me the power. You've given me the wand to tell you exactly to make the magic happen. This is how it's going to go.
You're right. You made a valid point.
That's the benefit of it. That's the benefit. Mitch Marner. So if they really asked him to waive his trade to go to Carolina, why would he do that? He's with a contending team in his backyard, and the Leafs now are telling him, we want Rantanen over you. Well, screw you. You got me, and I'm going to do the best I can, right? Like, I owe you nothing, and I'm a part of this team, and these are my guys, and I'm here all in, so I'm going to be all in, right? How do you fix that? You go out and win, and then you give him the big deal, and when you sign him, you give him the best possible offer you can make to him, and hope it's good enough.
It worked for George Costanza in Play Now.
That's right. Exactly right. It did.
Speaking of, some, issues with, the front office and the players, I mean, there was tons of talk about Chris Drury, the general manager there with the Rangers, and having being at odds with the players. Is that sort of smoothed out, or is that something that's still ongoing?
No, it seems to be smoothed out. Like, I don't think players back players, right? For the most part.
Yeah.
And the players didn't like what happened with Barclay Gaudreau in the offseason, that we're going to waive you, and we know that the San Jose Sharks are going to claim you. They didn't like that. They didn't like that, how Jacob Trouba was treated, in that sense. But it's the job of the general manager to look at the best interest of the team, not the player, right? Mm-hmm. He can't look at the player. So there's an understanding of it too. There's an understanding of the business. So the guys maybe were not happy, and I'm sure Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad weren't happy that their names got out there, and it was pretty much Chris Drury putting their names out there, right? I'm sure they weren't, but again, you come back to the understanding of this guy's got a job to do. We have a job to do. If we do our job, we're going to help him do his job. And I think it smoothed out as the Rangers came out of their slump, quarter of the season slump, which wasn't a slump. It was really the way they were playing. Mm-hmm. And then you saw some moves like, okay, we're going to bring in a big defense. We're going to bring in Will Borgen. He's going to help us right now. Look, we just got JT Miller. We got JT Miller. Like he's a 100-point player. This guy went out and got us JT Miller. Like there's a give and take here, and I think things have smoothed out. And he didn't punt on the season. He traded the guys that everybody thought would get traded, and he added as well. He didn't get picks and prospects and say, call it a day, boys. Now we're going to bring everybody up from Hartford in the AHL. No, they added too. So I think that things have smoothed out a little bit.
Dan, you got a great podcast. How can people find it?
The NHL at the Rink podcast. We just finished actually recording. We talked a lot about the Mitch Marner stuff. We just finished recording like an hour ago for a new episode, so it'll be available later on this afternoon, really wherever you get your podcast, the NHL at the Rink podcast.
Yeah, and if you missed the first half of this conversation, caught us midway, you can download the Jets at Noon podcast, free down Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and making time for the Jets at Noon, Dan. I really appreciate that. Awesome stuff.
I mean, to squeeze us in like this is amazing. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate you guys asking me to come on, so thank you so much for having me.
Well, we'll have to do it again. Dan Rosen.
And it's a great listen, so highly encourage all our listeners
absolutely.
to do so.
No, 100%. NHL.com writer, senior writer there, and of course, host of NHL at the Rink. Dan, thanks so much. Take care.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. And
thanks, guys.
And a voice of reason. I got carried away there with the no trades, and he brought it back down, right?
Yeah,
and he's right. Like what it does do is that's what it's designed to do is give the player the power.
Yeah.
And he's also right. Like if Marner, like I saw Marner in the shootout last night against Utah with a deadly move, wins the game for him. And you could tell there was a little extra.
Well,
like I just won a game for you, literally.
See, and this is this gets ironed out in contract talks, right? Because players obviously want to have this because it gives them the power. And if they don't give, it's, well, I'm not going to go there because what happens 2-3 years from now? You want me to sign 8 years? That's a long time.
And he's right. Players support players. Like I remember when Trouba held out here and going into that locker room and then he signed or there was a deal and he hadn't come back from New York yet or Michigan or wherever he was, but he was on his way. And the whole room, like Blake Wheeler, everybody was like, don't hold it against him at all. There was only one player who, I think it was Perreault.
It was Perreault,
who said, if you don't want to be here, then we don't want you here.
Yeah.
Like we all have, blah, blah, blah. But the whole rest of the players are like, look, this could end tomorrow. You got to get what you can get. Like they all were like, which was surprising because I thought like for a younger player and stuff like that.
It's interesting.
They support each other because they know that they all want to get paid eventually.
The no-move clauses have put a lot of teams in bad spots trying to fix a bad situation. I wonder if it's something that comes up in the CBA.
I think it's going to be.
I think it's going to be. I think we're going to see changes to it one way or another. Let's take a break. Let's come back on the other side. Rod Brind'Amour.
I got an idea about that, by the way.
What is it?
Real quick before the break. Instead of limiting the 10 teams, there's a percentage of contracts that can have one team on it. So if say right now 80% of the players have Winnipeg on it, for the next until that comes down to 40%, nobody can put Winnipeg on it. Next year, year after.
That's interesting.
Limit the number of percentage of contracts that can have one team on it.
Rod Brind'Amour's comments on Mikko Rantanen. I'll play those for you. You have to hear them when we come back.
Rod the bod, man.
Jets at noon with Cameron Poitras and Jim Toth on 680 CJOB.
Well, the VIP text of the day for Wash Method Car Wash, 690 St. Anne's Road, 204-780-6868 comes from Rick, I believe. He says, Jim, so what you're saying is the Jets should play Barron and Gustafsson over Kupari. Barron's going to be staying on the fourth line at center with Tanev and Iafallo. Gustafsson's going to be staying out. Kupari is available to return out of concussion protocol, but he's going to be staying out to get Barron in the spot. So, no. If I can speak for you, Jim, if you don't mind for 1 second here.
Certainly.
What Jim was saying was, and what I was saying as well, is you have to give Barron a longer opportunity at center here because you might just need him to play that fourth line center spot at some point over the rest of the season and the playoffs. And you don't want to be just throwing somebody in cold there. You want to be able to get them some reps.
Yeah,
that's what's going on.
Out
there.
of necessity, he's played there for 2 games and played well, and you want to keep looking at it. And Kupari's not even available today. So I wasn't saying over Kupari. I was saying this is a chance to look at what you got, much like earlier in the season when they put Lowry up with Ehlers and Perfetti, and that looked pretty good. They're just sort of making notes here in case come playoff time and there's injuries, what they can and can't do or what's worked before.
Let's play this. This is from the Adam Gold Show in North Carolina. This is from Rod Brind'Amour on the situation with Mikko Rantanen.
Left here because they didn't like it here. That was Seppa Mikko, and he did not like it. When he showed up, he said, there's 4 teams I'll go play for. Well, you're not one of them. So there's 28 other teams he wasn't going to. And when the better question is, should we have known that before we signed him?
Right.
Or attempted to sign him,
That's the question.
Yes, you should have.
Yeah.
This Rantanen thing is playing out to be like he's a real diva.
Yeah.
And I think they called his bluff in Colorado. I think he was steadfast that I want this. Same agent as Pettersson, right? And anyway, it's a mess. And I mean, in the end, much to what Dan Rosen was saying, the player got what he wanted, right?
Yeah.
Played his cards. He had a rough couple of weeks. Got sent out of Colorado. Why you would not want to spend the rest of your career playing with Nathan McKinnon, I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
But tax-free state, Dallas, we're going to get into all that going forward.
That's got to get dealt with in the CBA, too.
One final thing is, do you think I look like Peter Laviolette?
Yes, you do. Jim Toth will take you all the way until 2 o'clock. Thank you very much, Jeffrey Fortier, for producing the show. It's for me. Back same time tomorrow. See ya.
Good-looking
Rangers,
dude,
Jets. Puck drop at 7 on CJOB.
Just a good-looking dude, Peter.